My mom destroyed my relationships because they reminded her of her past. So I reminded her therapist why age is just a number. My mom had a habit of wrecking my relationships, all because they brought up memories she wasn't ready to face. So I gave her therapist a little reminder of my own. Why some folks say age is just a number. Ever since she hit 45, she's clung to the same excuse. She claims my dad messed her up so badly that she now has every right to prove she's still desirable by coming on to any guy who walks through her front door. And I don't mean a harmless wink at a school fundraiser. I'm talking full-on seduction. Every single boy I ever had feelings for, she found a way to get close to. As for her so-called trauma, my dad ended up leaving her for Ashley, some 25-year-old from the accounting department. But there's a big chunk of the story she conveniently skips over. She used to lash out at him physically, almost daily. He left with bruised ribs, black eyes, you name it. And when he finally walked out, the cops didn't lift a finger because apparently being a man means you're not allowed to be the victim. To make matters worse, she somehow convinced him that I encouraged her violence. That was all he needed to cut off contact with both of us. She never laid a hand on me, but what she did instead was just as violating. She kissed my boyfriends. It started out small. Freshman year, Jake came by for a group project. Mom strolled in wearing tight yoga pants and a push-up bra, then spent 5 whole minutes looking for her glasses, bent over right in front of him. 1 week later, I walked into the kitchen and found them making out. He was only 15. When I lost it, she told me I was being overdramatic. Said he reminded her of when she was young. Then there was Connor, my homecoming date sophomore year. Out of nowhere, she volunteered to help out at the event. Spent the entire evening pulling him aside, asking if we needed anything. 2 weeks later, while I was at practice, my best friend spotted Connor's car parked at our house. I came home to find his Letterman jacket lying on her bedroom floor. She convinced him that older women just understand men better. We'd been together for 3 months. Every time I took something to the local cops, screenshots of her flirty texts, even explicit pictures my exes had sent her, I hoped someone would step in. I figured, at the very least, they'd give her a warning. But no, all I got was a few smirks and one officer saying, "Dang, if I was their age, I'd be into her too." Apparently, it wasn't a crime if the boys were into it. They did absolutely nothing. By the time junior year rolled around, I'd learned to play it safe. "Mom, I'm not seeing anyone," I'd lie. Truth was, I'd been dating Marcus for 6 months. We went to different schools, had no friends in common, and stayed off each other's socials. I even told him my mom was dealing with some mental stuff, and we had to keep things low-key. But I made one slip up. She found a prom corsage receipt in my car. A prom date. That's so exciting. "I'll do your makeup," she chirped. On prom night, she insisted we take a few photos together. That turned into 45 minutes of posing. Then she started fixing Marcus's bow tie, brushing his chest with her hand, and saying how strong he looked. When we tried to head out, she burst into tears, talking about how she never got to enjoy her own prom, how dad never appreciated her back when she was young. Marcus, trying to be kind, gave her a hug. She clung to him like a lifeline. I had to drag him out of there and spent the whole ride apologizing. He looked shaken. "That was a lot. I get why you kept me away from her." He swore he'd block her everywhere. Said he wasn't like the others. He wouldn't fall for her games. "I'm not just some teenage guy. I can handle a woman like that." But 2 days later, his best friend sent me a blurry snap. It was a photo of my mom in the McDonald's drive-thru, with Marcus sitting right next to her. I called him right away. No answer. I drove home like a maniac and slipped inside quietly with my key. Found them in the living room, his arm around her, her head resting on his shoulder, both of them half-dressed. And to top it off, she was wearing my perfume. She looked up with those fake, glossy eyes and said, "Sweetie, I'm so sorry. He just makes me feel young again, like who I used to be." Marcus couldn't even meet my gaze. He just grabbed his shirt and left. Later, he texted me, said she'd been sending him photos all week, that he tried to ignore her, but she knew just what to say. Said he was sorry, but he couldn't fight it. I didn't cry this time. I'd done enough of that. Now it was her turn. Problem was, I was still too young to really fight back. So I waited. 3 years went by, and I finally hit 19. She still saw the same shady therapist who backed up every twisted thing she did. "Dr. Peterson says you need to give me grace while I heal." She said that like it was scripture. But there was one thing I noticed about Peterson that I could use. Anytime he came over for his spiritual cleansings with white sage, I'd catch him checking me out, like really looking. Now that I was of age, I figured it was time she got a taste of her own medicine. I made an appointment under a fake name, paid in cash, while she was at her usual hair appointment. The receptionist didn't even glance up as she handed me the forms. My hands were shaking just a little as I filled them out, making up a backstory filled with the same complaints my mom had been feeding Peterson for years. The waiting room reeked of lavender and broken dreams. I watched one woman come out of his office, tears smeared across her face, tissues clutched in her hands. When it was finally my turn, Peterson came out to get me. His eyes scanned me with that fake therapist concern, then shifted into something less professional. His office was exactly what I pictured: leather chairs, degrees on every wall, and tissues everywhere you looked. I sat down in the client chair, angling my phone just right in my pocket so it could catch everything. "So, what brings you in today?" he asked, his voice all smooth and comforting. I let my voice crack, just a bit. "It's my mom. She's ruining my life." I had rehearsed that line over and over in the car. She's a narcissist. Can't stand to see me happy. He leaned forward, notepad ready, soaking in every word. I gave him the same buzzwords my mom always used: emotional terrorism, toxic enmeshment, weaponized vulnerability. The more I talked, the faster his pen moved. Then my phone buzzed, text from mom about dinner. I pulled it out, eyes locked with his, and typed a quick reply. My wallpaper lit up the screen, a picture of me and mom at her birthday dinner last month. His eyes locked on it. His pen stopped. "Is that your mother?" he asked, nodding toward the phone. I quickly hit the lock button, putting on my best wounded expression. "We've got a really complicated relationship," I said quietly. "She's obsessed with appearances, makes us take these perfect photos. But behind closed doors." I let the words hang in the air, watched him soak it all in. "Sometimes," he said, "the people who are supposed to protect us are the ones who hurt us the most." He reached out and gave my hand a quick, gentle pat. "With everything you've shared," he said, "I think it would be best if we started meeting twice a week. The kind of trauma you're carrying needs more attention." The session wrapped up with him walking me to the door. His hand rested on my shoulder a bit longer than it needed to. "It's incredibly brave of you to come forward like this," he said. "Not everyone has that kind of strength." As soon as I got to my car, my phone lit up. Mom was calling. "Where are you?" "The library closes at 5 on Wednesdays." "Just leaving now," I lied smoothly. "Got caught up doing research. It slipped out way too easily." "Well, don't take forever. Dr. Peterson canceled our evening session, something about a new client emergency." There was a certain edge in her voice, like she'd been suspicious lately and was looking for proof. When I got home, she was already in my room, going through my dresser drawers like it was the most natural thing in the world. She didn't even try to act like it was something else. "What are you doing?" I asked, startled. "I'm just worried about you, sweetheart." "You've been acting so secretive," she replied, holding up a receipt from a coffee shop right near Peterson's office. "This place isn't anywhere close to the library. I met a study group there afterward," I said quickly. "Don't lie to me." She stepped in closer, and I could smell her perfume, the same scent she wore the night things fell apart with Marcus. "I know when you're hiding something." Then she dropped the bomb. "I installed a tracking app on your phone. Just for your safety, of course." Her smile was so sweet it felt like poison. "So imagine how surprised I was when I saw you were nowhere near the library today." My thoughts were spinning. I needed a burner phone, fast. The very next morning, she insisted on driving me herself. "I'll drop you at the library today," she said. "Can't have you getting sidetracked again." I didn't have a choice, so I played along. She watched as I walked into the building, even waited outside to make sure I went in. I spent 5 minutes pretending to browse the shelves before slipping out through the back exit. The city bus to Peterson's office took about 20 minutes. I arrived breathless, running late. "I'm so sorry," I said as the receptionist buzzed me in. "No problem at all," she smiled. Peterson appeared with a glass of water in hand and gently guided me toward his office, his hand resting on my lower back as we walked. "Controlling parents tend to create scheduling challenges like this," he said. This time, he sat even closer. Our knees were nearly touching. "Do you think your mother's behavior is getting worse because she feels you slipping away from her?" Meanwhile, Mom had figured out I wasn't where I said I'd be. She stormed into the library, demanding to see security footage. An elderly librarian, who liked me, called later to tip me off. She'd seen me leave and knew exactly which bus I got on. After the session ended, Peterson walked me out the back door instead of the front. "This isn't something I normally do," he said, motioning toward his car parked behind the building. "But given your situation, maybe we should talk somewhere more private, like over coffee. That way, we can continue without all the formal pressure of being in the office." I noticed his wedding ring was missing. "That could be helpful," I told him, knowing full well my mom was probably out combing the area for signs of me. She'd already started calling my friends. Alicia sent a text warning me. "Your mom just called. Said you were getting help, but didn't say from who." She sounded off. Peterson handed me his business card, but this time, he'd written a personal number on the back. "For emergencies," he said, "or just if you need someone to talk to." I made it home before Mom did, but she was waiting in the living room, lights off, sitting in the dark. Mascara streaks ran down her face, and in her hands was my journal, the one I thought I'd hidden safely under the mattress. "How could you write these things about me?" she sobbed, quoting entire paragraphs out loud. My notes about the way she manipulated my boyfriends, the mind games she played. "After everything I've done for you? You mean like hooking up with every guy I've ever dated?" I shot back. "Your father walked out on us," she cried. Do you have any idea what that does to a woman's self-worth? She stood and stepped toward me. And now you're keeping secrets. Sneaking around. Just like him. That's when I noticed she'd sprayed on the same perfume she'd worn the night she ruined things with Marcus. The bottle she stole from me. I need to start seeing Dr. Peterson more often, she said. He's the only one who understands the pain you put me through. 2 days later, she had a sudden emergency session. That night, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Peterson, your mother is very concerned about you. I think it would be beneficial if we coordinated our efforts. Would you be open to grabbing coffee Thursday? He was moving a lot quicker than I thought he would. I took screenshots of everything. The next morning, my carelessness caught up with me. I'd thrown out the burner phone receipt without thinking. Mom found it in the kitchen trash. What's this? She snapped, cornering me, waving the receipt like a warrant. It's nothing. She reached out and grabbed my wrist, her nails digging into my skin. You don't get to keep secrets from me. Not after everything I've done. I yanked my arm back, but she tightened her grip. Something in her face shifted. Whatever mask she usually wore was gone. You're just like your father, she hissed. Always sneaking around. Lying. Making me look like the crazy one. By the time she let go, a bruise had already started to form. I stared down at the darkening marks on my wrist. I took out my phone and carefully documented the bruises from every angle. The urgent care clinic wasn't far, maybe 15 minutes by car. But I had to be smart. Mom had shut herself in her bedroom by then. Probably on the phone with Peterson, fishing for validation. The doctor at urgent care looked at my wrist without much emotion, just that calm, clinical focus. She asked how it happened. I stuck to the story I'd prepared. Said I fell while trying to grab something from a high shelf. That my wrist got caught awkwardly on the edge. She nodded, but I could tell she wasn't buying it. Her eyes lingered on the shape of the bruises. These look like grip marks, she said softly. Like someone grabbed you. She met my eyes and held my gaze. There are support systems available if you want help. I just shook my head and stayed with my story. She didn't press it. She documented everything, gave me aftercare instructions, and let me go. The medical record would be there if I ever needed it. The next morning, Mom had morphed into some perfect 1950s version of herself. Pancakes were waiting on the table when I came down, my favorite. She'd even added fresh strawberries, cut into heart shapes. Gone were the revealing tops. She wore a soft, cozy cardigan. Her makeup was subtle, like she was trying to look motherly for a holiday card. I made your favorite, she said, her voice drenched in fake sweetness. We need to talk about yesterday. Dr. Peterson thinks we should have a family session. He says it might help us with all these communication issues. I eased into my seat at the table, making sure to keep my bruised wrist out of sight. The pancakes tasted like guilt wrapped in syrup, but I forced myself to eat while she laid out Dr. Peterson's grand plan to fix our so-called family dysfunction. Turns out the first family session was already on the calendar for that very afternoon. She drove us there, filling the silence with comments about how I'd been acting lately, how worried she was about me keeping secrets, and of course, how only Dr. Peterson truly understood what we were going through. The moment we stepped into his office, I could feel the vibe had shifted. It didn't feel like a safe space anymore with her there. She took her seat strategically, close enough to look involved, but angled in a way that showed off her curves in a tight dress I recognized immediately. It was mine. She must have taken it from my closet that morning. Thank you both for coming, Peterson said, slipping into his therapist voice like a second skin. Family relationships are often complicated, especially when there are issues of trust. Mom wasted no time launching into her show. She talked about how distant I'd become, how worried she was about the secrecy, and how I was pulling away from what she called healthy family bonds. Every few sentences, she'd touch her chest dramatically, pulling Peterson's eyes exactly where she wanted them. She's been lying about where she goes, she added, her voice trembling just enough. And I'm afraid she's forming inappropriate attachments to much older men. It's a pattern I've noticed lately. Peterson stopped writing mid-sentence, eyes bouncing between the two of us like he was trying to piece something together. Mom slowly slid her hand to the armrest, her fingers tracing slow, deliberate circles into the leather. That's a serious claim, he said, sounding caught off guard. You could tell he was trying to balance what he knew from our solo sessions with the curveball she'd just thrown. What makes you believe that's happening? She leaned in, dropping her voice to a whisper like we were sharing secrets at a sleepover. She's been hiding things, keeping parts of her life from me. And the way she looks at certain men. She didn't finish the sentence. Just let the words hang, vague and damning. As she brushed her hand across his desk, it looked like she was trying to pull sympathy from the furniture. I watched as Peterson shifted in his chair, clearly uncomfortable. His usual calm had started to crack under her performance. Everything she did was perfectly choreographed, every glance, every sigh, to make me look like the unstable one. When she brought up my supposed fixation on men who were off-limits, she even reached out and touched his arm, just for a second. By the end of the session, Peterson said he thought we should each continue with individual therapy before diving deeper into more joint meetings. Mom didn't like that answer. Her smile faltered for a second before she covered it up with a gracious thank you and a quick nod. As we got up to leave, she pulled her final move. Dr. Peterson, she said sweetly, this might be unusual, but would you consider a home visit? She played with her necklace, acting shy and humble. Sometimes, being in our natural environment helps a therapist really grasp what's going on. I could make us dinner. We'd have time to talk through things, more casually. Peterson hesitated, clearly torn. His training battling whatever spell she was trying to cast. That's not something I usually. Please, she interrupted, her hand brushing his briefly. It's for my daughter. I'm desperate. He finally agreed to think about it, and we left. Out in the parking lot, I moved fast and caught him just before he reached his car. We need to talk, I said under my breath. But not here. I suggested the coffee shop near his apartment. His face went red. I'm not sure that would be appropriate. Why not? I pressed. Because my mom's trying to seduce you? We both know what's going on. He glanced toward her car, where she was watching us through the windshield. Thursday, 3 o'clock, he said, keeping his voice low. Brevity coffee. Then he turned and walked off without another word. Mom tailed me the whole way home. I could see her car trailing me in the rear view the entire ride. Back at the house, she cornered me in the kitchen. What were you and Dr. Peterson talking about? Just something about insurance coverage, I said casually, trying to keep my voice even. She stared hard, searching my face like she could read guilt. He's a good man, she said finally. The only one who sees through your games. If the irony hadn't been so heavy, I might have laughed. Thursday came, and out of nowhere, Mom decided to run errands. But I'd already clocked her. Her car was trailing 3 vehicles behind me as I drove through Main Street. At Brevity Coffee, I picked a table by the window, somewhere she'd easily see from across the street. Peterson showed up about 5 minutes late. He looked exhausted, his hands shaking slightly as he held his coffee cup. She called me 6 times yesterday, he started. Your mother's relentless. She's a predator, I corrected him. Just like you. That landed hard. His expression darkened. I'm trying to help, both of you. By texting me outside your sessions? I said calmly. By asking to meet off the clock? I leaned in a bit. How long before you cross the line with me the same way she wants you to cross it with her? He reached across the table and placed his hand over mine. I let it stay there. I knew Mom was watching. He started gently rubbing small circles on the back of my hand. You're hurting, he said quietly. I just want to help you heal. My phone buzzed. A message from Alicia. Alicia, your mom just called my mom. She says you're seducing her therapist. What's going on? I pulled my hand back and showed him the screen. She's already building her version of the story, I said. Just so you know, she's watching us. Silver sedan. Right across the street. He turned his head just in time to catch her car peeling away a little too fast. She knew she'd been seen. When I got home, I walked straight into a full-blown ambush. Mom had gathered her book club, a couple of neighbors, and Aunt Karen, all waiting in the living room like they were on some courtroom jury. Mom sat in the center of it all, wearing my favorite dress, looking like the picture of maternal concern. There she is, she announced when I walked in. Sweetheart, we're all here because we love you. Aunt Karen was the first to speak. Your mom's told us about your troubling behavior, she said. These older men. The secrets. The sneaking around. We think you'd benefit from time in a treatment center, she added gently. For what exactly? I asked, still standing. Sex addiction, Mom whispered, letting tears build in her eyes. It's not your fault. Some of these things can be hereditary. She paused, letting the silence grow thick. But trying to seduce my therapist? She added, voice trembling. That crosses a line. The room went quiet. I looked at each face. Some looked worried. Others didn't know what to think. No one looked comfortable. Interesting, I finally said. Maybe we should talk about Jake. He was 15 when you made a move on him. Or Connor. His car was parked outside our house while I was still at practice. Or Marcus. Can't forget him. You were wearing my perfume when you slept with him. The room fell into an eerie silence. For a brief second, Mom's perfect facade cracked. I saw something raw in her eyes, fury, sharp and ugly, before she shoved the mask back on with fresh tears. This is exactly the kind of delusion that proves you need help, she began, already slipping into her victim voice. But then Connor's mom stood up. Hold on, Mrs. Patterson said, her voice cutting through the room like a blade. Connor told me something happened. With an older woman. He never said who it was. She stared hard at Mom, and I watched the realization slowly take shape on her face. It was you. Mom stood so fast her chair scraped across the floor. I will not sit here and be accused by a bunch of people feeding into paranoid conspiracies, she snapped. My daughter is unwell, and you're all enabling her sickness. And with that, she stormed out. But the damage was already done. Everyone slowly filtered out in silence. Awkward glances, muttered goodbyes. No one quite sure where to look. Later that night, my phone buzzed with a message from Peterson. Your mother canceled all future appointments. We need to talk. Meet me at my apartment tomorrow. 1247, Oak Street, Unit 3B. When I got there the next day, I heard her laugh before I even reached the door, floating down from an open third-floor window. That laugh used to sound warm. Now it sent a chill through me. I crept up the stairs and found the apartment door cracked open, just wide enough to hear what was happening inside. Mom's voice came first, low, smooth, calculated. She's always been jealous of me, she purred. Even when she was little, she competed for attention. From her father, from teachers, every man who entered our lives. That must be difficult, Peterson said, though he didn't sound like a therapist anymore. There was something different in his tone, closer, personal. You understand me, she whispered. I heard a rustling sound. She was probably inching closer to him. No one sees how hard I try. Would I give up for her? I slowly positioned my phone against the doorframe, camera aimed through the gap. She'd taken off her jacket. Underneath, she wore a blouse I recognized. Another thing she'd stolen from my closet. She was pressed up against Peterson on his couch, her hand resting on his knee like it belonged there. My daughter thinks there's something inappropriate between us, Peterson said, but it didn't sound like a real protest. My daughter wants everything I have, Mom whispered, leaning in. My perfume, my clothes, even my therapist. You see through her, don't you? That was all it took. I watched as his guard crumbled. The same tactics she'd used on Marcus, on Jake, on every guy she'd ever taken from me, now being used on him. Her hand slid across his chest. She whispered something too quiet for me to catch. He put his hand over hers. Maybe we should explore this connection, he said, to really understand the root of your family dynamic. I didn't stay to watch the rest. Her blouse was already slipping off her shoulders when I backed away from the door. Then, of course, I bumped a potted plant. The thing hit the ground with a crash loud enough to wake the dead. I bolted. I heard their footsteps racing toward the door. Peterson called out behind me. I didn't stop. I tore down the stairs, out the building, and didn't breathe until I was in my car. My hands were shaking as I started the engine. For years I'd been searching online for my dad, just casually poking around. His LinkedIn profile said he worked across town, over at Morrison Industries. I'd never had the guts to reach out. Until now. I drove straight there, adrenaline carrying me past fear. But the front desk wouldn't let me through without an appointment. So I grabbed some visitor center stationery and scribbled out a message. She's doing it again. Check Peterson's license. It's already suspended. Your daughter needs help. I was walking back to my car when a voice called out behind me. Excuse me. I turned and immediately recognized her, though only from Facebook photos. Early 30s. Put together. Ashley, my dad's wife. I know who you are, she said gently. Your mom tags you sometimes. I've seen your pictures. My throat tightened. I began. He's been wanting to talk to you, Ashley cut in. But the lawyers told us to wait until you turned 18. Then your mom locked everything down. We couldn't find you. She let me back inside. A quick explanation got us past security. The elevator ride up to the 5th floor felt like it lasted a lifetime. She knocked on a door labeled David Morrison, Senior Analyst. He looked older than I remembered. A little more gray, a few deeper lines in his face. But his eyes were still the same shade of green as mine. And when he saw me, they filled with tears. Oh God, he whispered. Is it true? The note? I nodded, suddenly unable to speak. He crossed the room in 3 long steps and wrapped me in a hug so tight. It felt like I could finally exhale. I hired a private investigator, he whispered into my hair. I know about Jake, about Connor, about Marcus, about all of it. He pulled back slightly. Ashley quietly closed the door behind us and stood watch to give us privacy. I've been building a case for years, he said. But by the time I had enough proof, you'd already turned 18. Then he added something that made everything click. The PI found something else. Peterson lost his license 2 years ago, got caught up in an inappropriate relationship with another client. I stared at him. You mean, Mom's been seeing a fake therapist? She's been paying him cash to keep it under wraps, he nodded. No license, no oversight, nothing. And just like that, it all made sense. That's why he didn't care about boundaries. He didn't have a license to lose anymore. Except, Dad said grimly, he can still lose his freedom. Practicing without a license is illegal. And if he's done this before. He handed me a file the PI had put together. It listed 3 other women, all single moms, all brought to Peterson by Mom. Each of them had stories that sounded just like mine. None of them pressed charges. But the pattern was there. We need something solid, Dad said. Something that directly links your mother to his illegal practice. Right then, my phone buzzed. It was a photo. Mom and Peterson. In bed. Her smile was smug and triumphant. Text. Now you know what it's like to have something stolen. I showed the image to Dad. His jaw locked tight. She doesn't realize what she just handed us. We spent the next 2 hours with Dad's attorney, piecing together a legal strategy. Connor's mom had already reached out to the PI. She'd agreed to turn over Connor's old texts. Jake's parents were thinking about it too. That night, I packed my things and moved in with Dad and Ashley. I took only the essentials. Mom was still at Peterson's apartment, no doubt playing house. The guest room was ready for me. Ashley said it had been waiting since the day I turned 18. The next morning, Mom finally realized I was gone. She called 17 times before I blocked her number. Then she moved to social media. She started posting about her new healing journey with a man who truly understood her trauma. She tagged Peterson's now-defunct therapy page. The comment section blew up. One stood out. It was from Peterson's ex-wife. "This is why I left him. Check the court records." The parole board asked her about her progress, what she'd done to rehabilitate. She spoke calmly, using all the right buzzwords: therapy groups, accountability exercises, how she'd come to understand the hurt she caused. Her voice cracked when she mentioned missing my college graduation, like that was the real tragedy. Then it was my turn to speak. My legs were shaking as I stood. I'd written a whole speech about second chances and the power of growth, but when I opened my mouth, none of that came out. Instead, I found myself talking about a scared teenage girl who had once called our center in tears, about the 7 women in Sarah's support group, about these cycles that keep spinning if no one breaks them. "She's not ready," I said finally, my voice steadier than I expected. "She's learned the language. She knows what to say, but she hasn't changed. She'll find new people to manipulate, new ways to hurt." I saw it then, just for a second. Her mask cracked. The rage flashed in her eyes before she caught it, and the tears returned. The board jotted notes, but their expressions gave nothing away. Connor's mom spoke next. She didn't cry. Her voice was clear as she described how her son still struggled to trust anyone, how his therapy bills were adding up, how he pushed people away because he couldn't believe they loved him for who he was. Jake's mother had written a statement. She talked about her son's fear around older women now, how he dropped out of college after a professor reminded him of my mom. In the end, the board denied her parole. She'd served the full sentence, with the next review set in 6 months. As the guards let her out, she looked back at me just once. No words, just a cold stare that said plain as day, "This isn't over." Outside, Connor's mother gave me a hug. "You did the right thing," she told me softly. "Connor wanted to be here, but his therapist thought it might set him back. He's doing better, though. He's even dating someone his own age now." That girl who called our office. Her case wrapped up about 2 months later. Her mom took a plea deal, probation, therapy, and a strict no-contact rule with minors outside the family. It wasn't justice, but it was more than I ever got. The girls started coming to our support group after that. Youngest one there, but not the only teen anymore. Peterson got attacked again in prison, badly enough this time that they moved him into protective custody. His ex-wife stopped sending updates after that. Sarah's group kept growing. We hit 12 members, then 15. We had to move to a bigger space at the community center. Then Dad and Ashley dropped the big news. They were having a baby. It hit me harder than I expected. I was genuinely happy for them, but the jealousy crept in too. In therapy, I started unpacking the weight of realizing Dad would now raise a child in a home free from all the poison I had to grow up with. Ashley asked me to help decorate the nursery. It was just a small gesture, but it meant more to me than I could explain. The teenage girl? She graduated from our program 6 months later. Her mom violated probation trying to show up at a school dance, said she just wanted to see her daughter in a dress. Back to court she went. They extended the probation and added tighter restrictions. The girl moved in with her dad full-time, started therapy, slowly began to heal. When Mom's second parole hearing came around, I didn't go. Couldn't do it again. But Connor did. He spoke via video. His voice was stronger than it had ever been. Jake sent another statement through his attorney. Marcus stayed quiet, but his absence said plenty. Parole denied again. Turns out, Mom had been caught with a contraband cell phone. She'd been using it to contact Peterson through some smuggled burner number. Nobody knew exactly what they were planning, but it was serious enough that the board had it sealed in her disciplinary file. Around that time, I started dating Nathan. He was a social worker at the community center. He already knew my story. He'd read about it during his training. Our first few dates were cautious. We both came with our own history. He'd grown up with an alcoholic father, so he understood what it meant to grow up in a home where trust was a luxury. The night before Mom's release date, I couldn't sleep. It had been 3 years since her conviction. Peterson still had 2 left to serve, but Mom would be free the next day. Dad didn't take any chances. He put up new security cameras, changed all the locks, even updated the restraining order. She never showed. But 2 weeks later, a process server did. Mom was suing for defamation, emotional distress, and destruction of property. She claimed the recordings I handed to the police had ruined her life. Her lawyer was young, hungry, and clearly working for a cut of whatever fantasy payout Mom had convinced him she could win. Dad's lawyer took one look at the paperwork and laughed. She doesn't have a leg to stand on. This is harassment disguised as litigation. We'll countersue. The legal mess dragged on for months. She found work at a salon 40 miles out of town, told her co-workers she was the victim of a smear campaign, locked up by her own ungrateful daughter. At first, someone always believed her, but the truth had a way of catching up. She bounced through 3 jobs in 6 months. Nathan proposed on a Sunday morning. No big build-up. Just the two of us drinking coffee in the kitchen I shared with Dad and Ashley. I said yes. We both knew it wouldn't be perfect, but it would be honest. And it would take work, every single day, to build something healthy. Mom showed up at our engagement party. Security removed her before she could make a scene, but not before she shoved a folded-up letter into my hand. I tossed it in the trash without opening it. Some cycles need to end in silence. That girl from the original phone call. She became a peer counselor. Now she helps other teens recognize predatory behavior, especially the kind that hides behind familiar faces. She speaks at schools, community centers, anywhere that'll listen. Her mom? She found new victims. But now, people know what to look for. 8 months before his scheduled release, Peterson died in prison. Heart attack, according to the official record. His ex-wife called to tell me. Her voice didn't hold much emotion. Mom, of course, took to Facebook to mourn the death of a great healer who truly understood pain. The comments told a different story, one after another from women who'd finally learned how to spot a predator. At my wedding, Dad walked me down the aisle. Ashley stood nearby, holding their toddler daughter. Mom's absence wasn't a hole, it was a gift. That empty space filled up quickly with people who actually protected me. Connor sent a card. Jake's mom came in person. Marcus stayed away, but his mother hugged me tightly at the reception. I kept working at the advocacy center. Every new case reminded me, my mom wasn't an exception. These stories repeat themselves. Charming mothers, trusting kids, systems that don't always work. But more and more now, we catch them. And more, someone listens. After her release, Mom started a blog. It was all about her wrongful conviction. And sure enough, she gathered a small group of other so-called alienated mothers. Dad's PI kept tabs on it, documenting anything that sounded like a threat or a hint she was spiraling again. She posted old photos of me, but the stories she told? All rewritten. In every version, she was the wounded, misunderstood hero. I stopped checking after she posted my prom photo, the one with Marcus cropped out like he'd never existed. 3 years passed. Then, she was arrested again. This time, it was a 19-year-old boy. His mom had been friends with mine. Same story, same moves. But this boy had done what the others hadn't. He recorded everything. Every word, every touch. She hadn't changed at all. And this time, I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel relief. Just tired. Like someone finally confirming what I already knew. Some people don't want to change. They cling to the only pattern they understand, even if it costs them everything. I was pregnant when the verdict came down. 5 years. No parole. Nathan sat next to me as we watched the local news cover the story. Brief and to the point. Just another predator being held accountable. They didn't mention me, just focused on that brave young man who spoke up. Mom didn't look like herself anymore. Her beauty was fading. That charm she used to cast like a spell? It was worn out. She looked ordinary. 2 weeks later, our daughter arrived. Tiny, red-faced, screaming at the world, and absolutely perfect. As I held her for the first time, I thought about the weight of inheritance. The things we passed down. The things we refused to. Mom would never meet her. Would never get the chance to stain another generation with her poison. The advocacy center grew. We opened satellite offices in 3 nearby counties. I started training new counselors, teaching them how to see what nobody saw when it was me. How to listen when a kid's trying to tell you something without saying it out loud. That teenage girl who started it all? She graduated college and became a lawyer, family law, naturally. She sends updates sometimes. Smiling photos. Thriving. Sometimes, I still dream about Mom. Not nightmares, just strange echoes. Dreams where she's beautiful again. Soft-spoken. Still choosing her hunger over my heart. But then the sun comes up. Nathan hands me coffee. My daughter giggles from her high chair. And I remember, I built this. I took the ashes of everything she burned and made something real. It's not perfect. I still double-check the locks every night. Trust still takes work. But the life we have, it's ours. The last time I saw Mom, it was through a grocery store's security camera. She was near her halfway house, just buying milk. No one looked twice. And I realized then, her power had always needed an audience. Without one, she was nothing but an aging woman in a checkout line. I deleted the footage. That chapter? Closed. My daughter had just started learning to walk, wobbling between furniture like her little legs were made of springs. Stubborn. Determined. A lot like me. But she'd grow up differently. She'd learn what boundaries are, what consent means, how to spot manipulation before it gets in too deep. And just like that, the cycle didn't just break, it ended. Not with revenge. Not with some perfect justice. It ended with 1,000 little choices made one day at a time. Choosing to protect instead of control. To nurture instead of feed off someone's trust. To build something that lasts instead of burn everything down. Mom might hurt other people again. She might tell her version of the story to someone who doesn't know better. But her reach is smaller now. Her patterns don't surprise anyone. Her power is what it always was. A mask she wears for people who haven't yet seen it slip. And me? Well, I signed the adoption papers for Ashley's second child. I'd already been her sister in every way that mattered. Now it was official. Dad cried when the judge made it real. It was the kind of moment that made the past feel like just that, the past. We don't talk about mom much anymore. When we do, it's in the way you talk about a scar, something that hurt once, but healed. The work continues. New calls come in. New stories start. Some of them feel all too familiar. But more and more, people speak up. And more often, someone listens. My daughter took her first real steps on a Tuesday afternoon. She reached for me with that pure trust kids are born with. I caught her, held her tight, and I made her a promise, quiet but unshakable. I would be the mom I needed back then. Not perfect, but present. Not hungry, but whole. Because in the end, the cycle didn't end with justice or punishment. It ended with love, with a quiet, daily choice to do things differently, to say no to what came before, and yes to what comes next.